So perhaps we can start, let me go to you first, Marc.
Okay.
Why did you first join the board? And maybe you can start with explaining when you were on the board.
To introduce a little bit on this, my daughter got a baby 8 months ago.
How long is this introduction going to be?
1 minute, but very relevant.
Okay.
So I'm a grandfather now for 8 months.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt when AMS-IX invited me to talk about AMS-IX in 1999, which is more or less talking, grandfather is more or less talking about the past. What was your question again, by the way?
No, why? Why, when you first got the invitation to join the board back in 1999, why did you decide that there's something important?
Because it was an extremely interesting period in the history of AMS-IX. Because before I started in 1999, there was just an association. And all the work was done by other companies like SurfNet, like NICAF, like Sarah, which we now know as Digital Realty number 9 in Science Park. So when we started with the board in 1999, we had an interesting challenge to make a company of AMS-IX, hire the first CEO, hire the first CTO, the CTO hiring a complete team from AT&T, his former colleagues, to insource the operations from SurfNet back to AMS-IX, the first CCO, Cara Massini, and also a lot of new services like GRX, MDX, going to IP ports of 1 gig. Can you believe that? 1 gig ports. Before that time, we only had 10 megabit and 100 megabit ports. More POPs, not just Sarah NICAF, also Global Switch, Telecity, which is now Equinix AMS-7, I believe.
Yeah.
Starting EuroX out of AMS-IX.
You really, it's about the architecture. You were building the
organization, architecture, more services.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
And Bart, when did you come on board?
I tried to come on board back in 2010 when I was more in a sales management role at Global Crossing.
Right.
One of these older, large IP backbones selling IP transit services. So I thought, okay, if I can be on the board of AMS-IX, I have direct access to all these ISPs, hosting companies. But I think they saw me through at the time, so I was declined. But then back in 2016, I was invited to become a board member, and I was happy to say yes.
Yes.
This was together with Erik Loos of BIX, now Gartner, who's also in the room here somewhere.
And specifically on the board of in a member setup like this, what has the experience brought you? What do you feel like the responsibility is also as a board member?
Now, as a board, we actually have multiple roles. We have an association, and we are the board of that association. So the association has members, and of course, I hope that all members in the room will also join the general meeting at 4:15. But the association also is the owner of the company AMS-IX, of the AMS-IX BV. So we're a shareholder, we're the shareholder meeting of that BV, and we also act as a supervisory board. So we have many different hats and many different responsibilities. In broad terms, we need to make sure that there is continuity and a solid future for AMS-IX as an organization, and that we have a good view on risks, both technically, organizationally, financially, and so on.
Yeah. And in that role, Christian, when it was your tenure?
I started 2007 and I stayed till 2013, so 6 years.
And a lot has changed since then as well.
That's true.
What did you find particularly challenging during that period of time? I'm sure there were many, but give us a highlight or two.
I think there were actually one or two particular ones. I would call them the little member riots. It was at the time when we, on one side, expanded. Before AMS-IX was just in Amsterdam, so all the expansions started, at least during my tenure. So the whole Hong Kong part, as well as the Caribbean IX, which was first a managed one and then later became an AMS-IX owned one, were at that time, and it wasn't obvious to all the members, especially the local ones, that this is an awesome idea. We had quite some conversations that AMS-IX should not expand, as there is no business in that, and rather lower the fees and stay true to the business instead of using the money which we just made in expansions which don't make any sense. So that was certainly tough act to guide, because you had international members on one side, which actually became more and more, and probably were then more than 50% at the time, who didn't mind for most parts. And then the more local ones, which didn't see the appeal of that one.
And has that changed? I mean, you're still close to the exchange now, in terms of how vocal the members, this community is now compared to then? Sounds like in the past they were very...
I think they're still vocal, but I think the majority either has accepted it, the vocal ones, or like the idea, because there were a couple of benefits coming with that one. So I think over time it has proven that it was a good idea, but it was not without hiccups, that's for sure.
And Alex, your period of your tenure?
I started in 2010. Until 2019. Gotcha. So I served 3 terms. They actually had to change the Articles of Association to keep me on the board.
Oh, you could flip it the other way. They couldn't get rid of you.
Well, at the time we had a couple of board members leaving. I remember Arif worked for Turk Telecom at the time. He fled the country shortly after the failed coup. So he was no longer working for a member, so he couldn't be re-elected. And so there were other people as well who were leaving. And because, it is always a good idea to keep some sort of continuity and not start with a whole fresh board, because that will leave you with a terrible brain drain.
Sure.
We asked the membership if they would agree to change the Articles of Association to make it possible for me to stay another term, and they did, and they re-elected me. So,
gotcha. Popular.
I don't think there was any other option. But
and in terms of areas of improvement for the board, you know, it's always sensitive to talk about stuff like that. But what do you see as are there mistakes that were made in the past that you think we can learn from, and AMS-IX in the future, and other exchanges can also evolve towards and learn?
Well, I don't really like to call it mistakes necessarily, because in retrospect it's always easy to say, well, you did that wrong, you did that wrong. At the time, people made decisions with the information that was available to them at the time. So I don't like to think of that as in terms of mistakes, but what was definitely an issue that I recall is that the membership became less and less invested, which is not a problem for us as a board per se, because, well, if nobody objects, then we can just do whatever we want. But that was not our objective. But shortly before, it had been made possible for connecting parties to just become a customer rather than a member. At first, you had to become a member of the association in order to be connected to the AMS-IX. And because a lot of international companies were connecting at the time, and they didn't always get the idea of the BV that was owned by an association, and you have to become a member, and all the legal issues involved with that, like accountability and everything. They found it a little bit hard to sell the idea of becoming a member of the association, so they made it possible to become just a customer. So you can pay, get a port, and you don't get a say, and you don't get shares, basically. And then after that, the issue arose that there were less and less members involved with the association. But that was also because there were, especially percentage-wise, there were less members and more customers.
And Bart, why do you think that has happened? Why is there less interest among members to be really part of the decision-making process?
Yeah, so it could be that IP interconnection, the cost of IP interconnection has become such a small fraction of the total cost of an ISP or of a hosting company that it sort of became less relevant for that type of companies. But I do echo definitely what Alex just said. I think also today as a board and as an AMS-IX team, we can definitely improve in better explaining the benefits of being a member. 40% of the connected networks or connected companies are a member of AMS-IX. So there's definitely also, I believe, a lot of lack of knowledge on what membership actually means. And it means you have influence in what happens to AMS-IX, you can join the board. It is definitely more than just being a customer.
Yeah. This is a good moment, as good a moment as any then. What are the other benefits? Maybe in like very, very briefly, because I don't want this to just be a PR thing, but what would you say, Mark? What's a brief benefit of being an active member?
A benefit of being connected to the AMS-IX?
Yeah, being a member.
Well, AMS-IX definitely is one of the biggest exchanges in the world, if not the biggest. So you can get a lot of connectivity at AMS-IX. So I would always recommend people to stay connected to AMS-IX or to start being connected to AMS-IX anyhow.
Yeah.
But not as the only solution, obviously. So yeah, just keep on connected to AMS-IX. But for AMS-IX itself, it might be an idea to add more services to the portfolio, to package the service a little bit more. I was told the last couple of days that there are about 27 internet exchanges just in Amsterdam these days. So you can't win it anymore on price. You really have to do more than just price. Which is a challenge, but probably that's what's needed.
Christian, how does AMS-IX cement its position, or how, in this competitive landscape of internet exchanges, what do you see happening?
I didn't even realize till this morning that we had 27, so I actually got to look that up. I guess I'm ignoring all of them besides 2, which is on me for being ignorant. No, I think I would actually address more your community question you asked. So my day job, we are connected to, I don't even know, 180 internet exchanges. So I cannot be part of every community all over the world, right? So the community has to bring a certain value to the people who participate. And I guess that is what is different with AMS-IX to a degree, even if I would see the product probably more as a commodity product, right? It's not particularly different than the other big IXs per se. But because it is so big and it was so early on the market here in Amsterdam, and one of the reasons I came to actually see old friends and colleagues again, is you have a connection to them. That is not true for, I don't know, 100 other IXs we have joined as a company. So it is the people and the interconnection between them, also where you help each other out or potentially do business deals. But it has to have a certain size, both from an IX perspective, but also from a reaching country perspective, that it makes sense.
But if I listen to Alex, for instance, he's saying that it's kind of not really there, the community, because they're letting the board do what they want, and there's no real, like, is there a way, Alex, do you have ideas on how to spark more
but there's a big difference between community and members. It's not the same. So the community, I totally agree with Christian. It's a very tight community. It's always fun to be at AMS-IX organized events because, well, I call them the usual suspects. They're always here. The people I've known for 20 or something, over 20 years. So that is the community that Christian was talking about. But that's something else. That's something different from members. So all the members of the community, well, all the people are here. They're not all of them are members of the association. So maybe we should encourage them to check the box if they are interested in a membership.
Yeah.
Total silence.
No, we had many.
Take out your laptops, check the box.
We had some members actually suggesting, well, why can't we get a discount if we become a member?
Oh, such a Dutch community.
That's what they do in Germany.
This was actually a Belgian idea, just to.
Hey, I want to.
No, but I think that the key difference is, as a member, you're first of all part of the shareholder in the whole organization.
Yeah.
You have the ability to discuss strategy, influence strategy. As a board, we have to approve or decide pricing. Pricing is always a hot topic in this community. So if you're a member, you have much more, and you become active, you have much more ability to influence things than if you are just a customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk a bit about the public-facing nature of the board, of course. We're talking about what the future of the AMS-IX board could look like and other internet exchanges. And one thing that strikes me, looking up here, ex-board members, the lack of diversity. I think you're all white, you're all male. And when I brought it up in a call, in our pre-call, I did notice a lot of discomfort. There's a lot of sensitivity around that. So I'm kind of curious. Alex, for instance, I don't think you think diversity is a particularly problematic issue at the moment?
Well, it might be, but not in the M6 board.
Uh-huh.
We have diversity in haircuts. I think that's very.
we have two different types.
In the current board, we have the discussion, of course, obviously, especially when we try to find new board members.
Yeah.
And if you look at the current board, it's even more white, age, and so on, than the people here on stage. But if you then look at the personalities, we're all very different. So there's a lot of diversity from the personal characteristics point of view.
Yeah.
You look at the industries we represent, there's a lot of differences. So if you look at it, okay, it's all male, white, old.
Yeah.
But there is a bit more diversity than that. And obviously, we would very much welcome also more diversity in gender, color, whatever you name it. But
there was more diversity when I was on the board.
And
I don't mean myself, but my fellow board members at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't, I mean, this is very sanitized now, but there was a little bit more pushback during the call. Like is it really something we need to focus on? But I'm not really feeling that now. But
I'm holding back.
It's really important, right? Because this is, it's an uncomfortable conversation, and that's the kind of conversation we established earlier that we can grow from. So it's okay. Don't hold back. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, in my days in the board, we did not really think about it. It was not an issue. But it happened to be that we had a colored person in the board, and we had the first female CCO in the AM6. So, well, we simply did it without thinking.
So there's not a problem with diversity at all?
Not at all.
Yet you're all white, you're all male, and...
Well...
But okay, is that... Yeah,
if you want me to be gay or something...
Yeah, Christian. Exactly, yeah, well, definitely. Yeah. Yes. No, sure, but... Sure. Okay, but look, this is good. This is good. I'm feeling like a different kind of energy in the room. I like this. Okay, good. We'll come back and explore that a bit more. But Christian, you wanted to say something.
We should not forget the board members get elected by the members, right? So it's not that we have selected ourselves and therefore we just have chosen close friends or whatever. So for that you need candidates, right, which have to run. I think what we had probably a little bit more in the past was a diversity of cultures and countries. Mm-hmm. But as I said, like in our case, when you're at 150, 180 internet exchanges, and some of them are far away, you got to think about if you fly there for board meetings back and forth, right? Mm-hmm. So it is easier if you're part of the local community to decide, sure, board sounds interesting, instead of getting up at 4 a.m. And then fly to another city for board meeting and potentially back. So the effort is higher, right? But all the members, you can choose whoever you want. So, you know, how diverse the board is up to the members.
I mean, obviously it's a two-way street. You can also decide to not take a position, make room for someone else, and explain that. But
no, you can't.
But I see you can't turn it down.
Well, you can turn it down, but we cannot, we as a board. I'm not a board member anymore, but we as a board cannot refuse other board members. It's up to the...
No, but I mean, if you get offered a board membership, if the board says to a completely new person, oh, we'd love you to be a more member, you can, of course, say, you know what?
No, no thanks. Yeah, you could.
So that's possible.
You could. Yeah.
Okay, do we have any questions on this topic or any others in the room? No one? Well, let's go over to I want to stay on it.
So far to volunteers?
No, but maybe you could stand up, just say where your name and your organization. Okay, I don't.
Hi, Marieke.
Hey, Marieke. CFO?
No.
Okay.
Data center procurement, I'm manager for Cloudflare.
Okay, great. In terms of the future of the board, we've talked about the need to be to attract new talent, to think more broadly about the world, build a better society, better internet. To what extent do you think gender diversity and diversity in general at board level is important?
I don't think it's important at all. You need to be interested in technology. If you're not interested in technology, you're not going to be in this market. And I know for a fact a lot of women are not interested in technology, but the women that are in this market are very knowledgeable. And one of that is also causing one of the issues. The women most likely know more than the men sitting next to them, in general. Mm-hmm. In my perspective, in my job. So just... Right,
I don't need. Get around
but I do see within our organization a lot of women on high technical jobs, and they are doing very, very well. Yeah. The only issue that I see now is that there are a lot of men who find it difficult that sometimes a woman knows more. And I think that's a mentality that should change. And if that changes, then I think a lot more women would be interested in walking around in this market. Okay, some really interesting points there. Thanks very much.
Okay, one over there, and then we'll come back over here. Yes, please.
I got fired up with what you said first, but I agree at the end. If we see more women up there, that will open up your pipe as well. I studied mathematics and cognitive science back in the 90s in Turkey. I had more women in that classroom than it is now. Women are not incentivized partly to be interested into technology, because also when we look up there, we know that we are not going to go up far. The glass ceiling is getting thicker for us compared to some others, and that is an incentive issue. So I would like to reframe your question. Why, you're all men, but what kind of things can you do to make it more diverse? If you see benefit in sitting in a diverse board for a diverse organization.
Okay, thanks very much for this. Let's take that one first. Christian, and then Alex,
I have been by now in 8 or 9 boards, so I have seen various ones with various cultures. In general, I would agree that a diverse board of thoughts and genders is beneficial. It is also fair enough to say that the entrance barrier is higher. It takes actually longer till you have a cohesive group and can work together. So you have to put in work. It's not easier. One should keep that in mind, because depending on what the board is about or the organization, you can argue if it's worth it or not. But if you have an international membership base and like the AMS-IX or so, I think it is certainly worthwhile and makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. It's fair enough to say that we actually had females here on the board. My successor was even chairman for many years. And French-Canadian, so you get as much diversity as you want as a non-European. We had a Turkish person on it, and don't recall all the various parts.
Sure, no, I don't want to, we're not just pointing, this is a bigger question than just AMS-IX, but it speaks to the point there, someone saying she doesn't think that there's a need, especially for gender diversity. Over here we say there is, and what can men do to promote it? But Alex, your view on this? You mentioned you were holding back earlier.
Well, I agree with the diversity topic in general, but in the context of AMS-IX, I don't think it really is an issue, because if I look at the company, as far as I'm aware, it's very diverse, and the board, especially from the moment I was re-elected in 2013, was quite diverse as well. And I enjoyed it a lot. What Christian said about getting to know each other and getting used to each other, learning to work together. Well, we almost immediately had quite a job to do, because we had to hire a new CEO. So we learned to work together quite quickly.
Okay. Good.
Maybe to add to that. So sure. In the past, so I've been on the board now for 8 years. We really tried hard to find female board members in the last couple of times that positions came up. And at the time, we simply could not find them.
Okay, they're not out there. Sorry, ladies. The thing is that there's another angle I think that hasn't been touched on yet, which is research reports by consultancies that suggest that a more diverse board literally directly translates to higher company profits, bigger stockholder returns, more innovation even, innovation revenue, so revenue generated as a result of products that have been developed over the last 2-3 years. So literally statistic data that suggests it's a good idea. But
Totally silence.
okay, let's go to Peter, and I think there was a question over there. Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to add is we, of course, are now focusing on the board, but I think the company, including the board, is of course much more than the 5 members of the board. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the team of AMS-IX, the company, it is very diverse. We have, I think, last count 22 nationalities. It's sort of split through the middle, man or male, female. 25 different languages. So I think from a company perspective, it is very diverse.
But also leadership. I know that you really wanted a female CFO, for instance.
Yeah, well, not just a CFO. I wanted women on management positions, whether it's my direct reports or in the middle layer, so to say. And I'm saying that very consciously, being a middle-aged white man, CEO called Peter, because apparently there's more CEOs called Peter than there are women CEOs in the Netherlands.
Wow! Wow!
So it's not just because of that, but it does take an effort, and it does indeed. I mean, you need to work for it, and I agree. It's not always easy, because if you want to change things and you have multiple cultures, the Dutch are very who are you, and there's no hierarchy, and etc. Yeah. If you go more sort of Latin American or South European or Eastern European, it's a bit more, why don't you tell me what to do? Mm-hmm. So it's not always easy, but I think if we look at the company as a whole, it is very diverse.
Thanks, yeah. I mean, the circle is almost, as the Dutch say, cirkel is bijna rond, because it was Rob telling us at the beginning about how it doesn't have to be easy, right? It has to be worth it. And, you know, the best solutions are, unfortunately, the most complex ones. It's not something binary. There was someone who raised their hand over here, all the way at the back. Okay. A back-seater, guys, everyone, folks. We have a back-seater. What's the question? Yes, what's your name, please? I'll hold it.
My name is Erik Loos, and my term as board member ends next year.
Okay.
Right? So let's start from that. We do suggest the next board members, yes. We as a supervisory board. That means we go from our own contact list. Mm-hmm. We go from the companies we know. We don't always know the women in those companies. So let this be a call to the entire audience here. Wonderful. To make sure we know about women in your organization that might be interested in this position.
Yeah, and you, obviously, two-way thing, you go out and look for people in maybe different places than you're used to looking. But absolutely, it's a good point.
Theoretically, yes, but they need to come from a member organization, which is a complexity. And in the member organizations, we know the peering coordinators, the salespeople, not the entire company.
Yeah, super. I think that's a lovely note to end on, to be honest. A call to action, a battle cry for more diversity but getting the best people. Getting the best people. So listen, thank you very much to all of our former board members for sharing their stories. Thank you very much for all of your questions and engagement. I'm double mic'd now. That's not allowed. So a big round of applause. Oh, sorry? Oh, there's one more? Yeah, okay, 152 left. Yeah.
It's not related to this diversity.
That's okay.
It's something else. I just wanted to ask about the community changes, because you were all in a different period of AMS-IX, and how do you feel in the sense of membership? Has the focus switched from, I don't know, making internet better to profit, or what kind of changes have you experienced within these years? I don't know.
Anyone in particular? Who would like to take that?
No, I think at least the membership if I just talk about members and not customers, has become much less vocal than in Christian's or Marc's or the early days of Alex. And I think we touched on that before.
And in the early days, the discussions with members were much more technical than they are now. And now it's much more about business expansion. Should we go to Hong Kong? Should we do this? Should we do that? And in the early days, it was a very small group. We're all very technical people. They all had opinions. So I think that's a big change.
And most of them were Dutch. So
yeah.
It was a very Dutch thing during the membership meetings.
Yep. And I think now 20% of the companies/networks connected to AMS-IX are Dutch. I think that back in the old days, that was probably a much higher percentage.
So in these days, AMS-IX is everywhere in the world. But in those days, you had discussions about whether AMS-IX should leave Amsterdam and go to the east of the Netherlands, yes or no. And that was very tough meetings. Everybody was fighting with each other, no, yes. And finally, it was voted away. But that kind of communities we had in those days.
Gotcha.
I think the general meeting at 4:15 is a good measurement point to see how vocal people have become.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Keep repeating this, sorry.
Yeah, 4:15 today. The 61st general meeting of AMS-IX. Okay, note for your diaries. Big round of applause, please, for Marc, Christian, Alex, and Bart.